Jake was just trying to change his shirt. It was a normal evening on the orbital university station called Zenith Neen. Jake, a human student from Earth, was living in a shared room for the first time. The room was small, but neat, one half for him. The other for his new roommate. He hadn't met the roommate yet. Only heard from the station staff that she was from a planet called Awaken. Jake didn't care much. He just wanted to finish school and go back to Earth. He pulled off his shirt and stood in front of the small mirror. His back covered in sweat from exercise. That's when the door opened without a sound. Zilara stood there. Frozen in place, her large alien eyes wide with shock. She was holding a small tray of food, but her hands trembled and the tray almost slipped. Jake turned around, confused, shirt still in hand. "Oh, hiya. I didn't hear you come in," he said awkwardly. Zilara didn't speak. Her violet skin glowed softly, and small silver lines shimmered on her cheeks. Her long white hair floated slightly, reacting to the room's airflow. Then, without a word, she turned and rushed out the door. The tray hit the ground with a soft crash. Food scattered everywhere. Jake stood there, stunned, unsure what had just happened. He quickly put on his shirt, walked out into the hallway and called her name. "Hey, wait." I didn't mean to, but she was gone. Later that night, Jake found the tray back on the table. Clean and empty, but no sign of Zilara. She didn't return until he was already asleep. The next morning, Jake woke up to find a note under his door. It was written in strange, flowing script. But thankfully, it had a translation below. "Please forgive me. I did not mean to enter without warning. I forgot your kind needs privacy during transformation." Jake blinked. Reading the note again. Transformation. "I was just changing my shirt," he whispered as the day passed. Zilara didn't speak to him. She stayed on her side of the room, quiet, always facing the wall. But Jake noticed strange things. Her side of the room was filled with plants that moved. When he walked near them, her mirror didn't reflect properly, and her books hovered instead of stacking. Jake tried to start a conversation. "So, Zilara? Right. I'm Jake, from Earth." She nodded slowly, but didn't look at him. "I didn't mean to startle you yesterday," he said softly. Her voice finally came, light and echoing, like wind passing through glass. "You did not startle me. You activated something." Jake blinked, unsure what that meant. "What did I activate?" She finally turned toward him, and her glowing eyes stared deep into his. "Our connection, it began the moment I saw your exposed form." Jake coughed, nearly dropping his tablet. Wait, what do you mean?" "I was just shirtless." "That's not a big deal." She looked confused, her head tilting slightly on Awaken. The first sight of one's partner's bare skin begins the path of resonance. Jake's face turned red. No, that's not what this is. I didn't mean anything like that," he said quickly. Zilara stepped back, nodding. "I understand, but the bond has begun, whether you wish it or not." Jake sat down on his bed, completely lost. He thought she was just a shy alien roommate. Now she was talking about strange bonds and glowing eyes. He rubbed his temples. "This is going to be a weird semester," he muttered. That night, Zilara didn't sleep. Jake noticed her standing by the window, looking out into the stars. Her body shimmered softly under the moonlight, coming from a nearby planet. She whispered something in her language, and the room filled with a soft hum. Jake felt the sound inside his bones. Like a song only she could sing, he closed his eyes, not understanding the words, but feeling something warm in his chest. He didn't know it yet. But everything in his life was about to change. Because Zilara wasn't just any alien roommate, she was carrying a secret. Something that would connect them far deeper than culture or species. And it had already started, all because of one awkward moment and an open door. Jake stared at the note again, his eyes reading the strange words over and over. If we remain within 10 steps of each other every cycle, the bonding will strengthen. After 12 moons, there may be no way to undo it. He didn't know what it meant. Not really. It sounded like some kind of alien rule, some custom from Zalara's people. But what was this bonding she kept talking about? He just wanted to pass his classes, not fall into some weird space romance. The day started quiet. As always, Zalara was on her side of the room. Back straight, eyes closed, hands folded, she looked calm. But Jake knew she was watching him, somehow, whenever. He moved, her ears twitched. Her species had sensitive senses. He had read that in the station's welcome packet. Still, she hadn't spoken since the night she said, "The bond has begun." Jake tried to ignore the tension. He turned on his tablet, scrolled through human history homework, and tried to focus, but his thoughts kept drifting. What did bonding mean to her people? Was it like dating? Marriage? Something worse? Later. That evening, while Jake was brushing his teeth, she finally spoke again. "You left your shirt on the chair again," she said quietly. Jake turned around, toothbrush in his mouth, surprised. "Yeah. Sorry. Is that a problem?" "No," she said, "but it makes it harder to focus." He rinsed his mouth, then looked at her more carefully. She was closer to him than usual, standing just on the edge of the 10-step distance. "Focus on what?" Jake asked, wiping his face. Zalara didn't answer at first, then said, "On resisting the instinct to draw near." Jake blinked, not sure if she was joking or serious. "I think we need to talk," he said. He sat down at the edge of his bed, motioned for her to do the same on hers. Reluctantly, she sat, folding her long legs under her. Her eyes shimmered again, but softer this time, not glowing. "All right, tell me exactly what this bond thing is, and why it's happening just because you saw me shirtless," Jake said firmly. Zalara took a breath. A soft, vibrating sound came from her chest. "Valquin people form emotional and instinctual bonds through first exposures," she began. "It is a sacred moment when one sees the natural form of another." Especially without warning, Jake scratched the back of his head, feeling awkward. "But I didn't mean to show you anything," he said. "I know," she replied, "but meaning is not needed. The eyes see, and the heart responds." Jake sighed, trying to understand. "So, what happens now?" he asked. "If we remain together, sleep under the same roof, share space and breath, the bond will deepen," she explained. "And what if we don't? If we keep distance, it may fade, but we would need to stay apart for at least a full moon cycle." Jake stood up, pacing the room. "That's not possible. We live in the same room. We go to the same school," he said, frustrated. "I tried to request a transfer," Zalara said, "but they said no spaces are available." Jake looked at her again, her expression sad, maybe even worried. "Why are you scared of this bond?" he asked. She looked down, her voice shaking slightly. "Because if it grows too strong, I may no longer have a choice." Jake frowned. "A choice? For what? To stay?" she whispered. "Or to leave?" Silence fell in the room. Just the soft hum of the station in the background. Jake finally sat again. This time, closer. "Hey, look. I'm not trying to mess up your life," he said. "I just want to be a decent roommate." Zalara looked up, her eyes locking with his again. "I believe you," she said, "but sometimes the stars don't care about what we want." That night, something strange happened. As they slept, both had the same dream. In it, they were standing on a glowing bridge between two worlds. One world was dark and cold, filled with metal and shadows. The other was bright and soft, covered in floating trees and rivers of light. They walked toward each other from opposite ends. And when their hands touched, the bridge lit up in golden fire. Jake woke up with a start. heart pounding across the room. Zalara sat up too, eyes wide. You saw it too, she whispered. Jake nodded slowly. What does it mean? He asked. She didn't answer, just whispered one word: proximity. And the lights in the room flickered, just for a second, as if something unseen had entered the space between them and decided to stay. Jake was used to living with roommates. But this was different, very different. It had been 3 weeks since the incident, and since then, things weren't normal anymore. Not just because Zalara was alien, but because she started acting in strange, quiet ways that made him feel watched even when she wasn't in the room. It began with the food. Jake would come back to the dorm after classes, and there would be a hot bowl of something on his desk. The smell was sweet and spicy, almost like cinnamon mixed with starlight. He never saw her cooking, never saw her entering with it, but it was always warm, always fresh. At first, he thought it was a one-time thing, but it kept happening every night. A different meal, perfectly placed. He asked her once, "You made this?" She didn't answer directly, just said, "Your system needs balance." Jake had no idea what that meant, but he kept eating. Then came the other things. His bed was always neat in the morning, even when he didn't remember making it. His clothes were folded with perfect symmetry, and his tablet was always charged and aligned on the desk. He asked her again, "Why are you doing this?" She looked at him, calm as always, "Because it calms my resonance." Jake didn't press, but deep inside, he started to wonder if this was normal. One night, he stayed up late, pretending to sleep. He watched through half-closed eyes as Zalara walked silently across the room. She stood beside his bed, not touching him, just watching. Her face was soft, eyes glowing slightly. Then she whispered something. "Your breath matches mine now." Jake didn't move, didn't speak, just lay there, pretending to sleep while his heart raced. The next morning, she was back in her corner, meditating, as if nothing had happened, but Jake felt it like an invisible thread pulling between them. Later that day, in the campus library, Jake tried to search about Thalquin bonding. Most of the databases were locked behind alien cultural firewalls. But he found something: an old paper written by a human xenologist. The title read, "Emotional Imprinting and Neural Syncing Among Thalquin Adolescents." Jake's hands trembled as he read, "When a Thalquin female begins to sync with a chosen being, she will act to maintain emotional balance in her environment. This includes preparing food, maintaining order, providing safety, and observing sleep patterns of the bonded partner." Jake sat back, breath shallow. She wasn't just being polite, she was syncing with him. And that meant something far deeper than friendship or kindness. He didn't know what to do. Back at the dorm, he walked in early and caught her rearranging his shoes. She jumped slightly, her color shifting to a softer blue. Jake spoke gently. "You're syncing, aren't you?" Zalara turned slowly. "Yes, I believe I am." "Why me?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. She looked down. "Because you were kind. And you didn't laugh when I panicked." Jake shook his head. "But I'm human. I don't even understand how your kind loves or connects." "Neither do I," she replied. "This is my first bond." He sat down beside her, not too close, but not far either. "Zalara, this can't be one-sided," he said. "I don't want to hurt you." She smiled for the first time since they met, a small, gentle smile. "You are not hurting me," she said. "I chose to feel this, even if it brings pain." That night, Jake had another dream. This time, he was falling through stars, and Zalara's voice was calling him from below. He reached for her, but their hands never touched. When he woke up, he found her sitting beside his bed again, her fingers glowing softly over his heart, not touching, just hovering. "I heard your fear in the dream," she said quietly. Jake looked at her, confused. "You saw it too?" She nodded. "When the sinking grows stronger, so do shared dreams. Jake sat up, wiping sweat from his face. This is too fast. I can slow it, she said. Oh. Standing up and walking back to her side of the room. But it may be painful. Before. Jake could ask what that meant. She pressed a small crystal to her chest. A sharp flash of light blinked in the air, and Zalara collapsed. Jake jumped from his bed and rushed to her. She was breathing, but weak, her glow dim. He lifted her gently and laid her down, his hands shaking. What did you do? He asked, panicked. I broke the feedback loop, she whispered, to give you space. Jake stared at her, heart pounding. I never asked for that, he said. I know, she said with a soft breath, but I heard your fear. And I didn't want to be a burden. Jake didn't know what to say. All he knew was her strange behaviors were not random. They were part of something powerful, something ancient, and now it had nearly cost her everything. Because of him, Next morning, the dorm room was quiet. Jake sat beside Zalara, who was still resting. Her glow soft like fading moonlight. She had risked her health just to give him distance. That thought didn't leave Jake's mind. All around the station, students hurried to classes, laughed in halls, sipped glowing drinks at the common cafes, but inside room 17B on level 6, something deep had shifted. Jake finally stood up, gently placed a blanket over her, and left for class. The moment he stepped into the lecture hall, he knew something was wrong. Students were whispering, pointing at him, pretending not to when he looked their way. He sat in the back, confused. His friend Milo turned around, his face half smirking. Hey, lover boy, didn't know you had it in you, he whispered. Jake frowned. What are you talking about? Milo slid his tablet toward Jake, screen already glowing. A still image showed Jake's hand gently touching Zalara's glowing forehead. In the background, the human bed, the soft lights, the closeness, it all looked very intimate. Jake's blood ran cold. Who took this? He hissed. No idea. Someone said it was caught by a monitoring drone near your window last night. Milo shrugged. It's all over the student net now. Jake couldn't believe it. He stormed out of the class, tablet still in hand. Back. In the room, Zalara had sat up, her glow slowly returning. Jake threw the tablet on the bed. Someone spying on us. She stared at the image, then closed her eyes. I feared this, she said softly. They do not understand our kind, Jake. Paced the room, angry and helpless. Do you know what they're saying about us? He asked. That I claimed you. Zalara looked up, her face unreadable. To claim is not the same as to care, she said calmly. Jake's heart twisted. But I do care. That same moment, the room's door buzzed, and two figures stepped in. One was a tall human administrator. The other, a Thalquin female, dressed in ceremonial robes. Jake stood straight, his fists clenched. The Thalquin woman spoke first. Her voice sharp like cold metal. Student Zalara has violated cultural boundaries by displaying bonding behaviors. With a human before council permission, Zalara's shoulders lowered, her head bowed. Jake stepped forward. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't even choose to see me that day. The administrator raised a hand. Jake, please. Let the council representative finish. Jake bit his lip, but nodded. The woman continued. Due to this scandal, Zalara must be relocated to a containment dorm while the bond is examined and either approved or erased. Jake's heart dropped. Erased. Zalara's eyes filled with faint light, her voice shaking. You mean memory deletion? Yes, the woman said coldly. To preserve cultural order. Jake turned to the administrator. You're okay with this? Just wiping her mind. She is not human, the man replied. And this is Thalquin law. Jake looked at Zalara, who hadn't moved. No, he said firmly. She's not going anywhere. The Thalquin woman raised her hand, and a wave of energy pushed Jake back. You? Do not decide, she said. The bond was unauthorized. Solara slowly stood up, though her body was still weak. I will go, she said, but I do so only to protect him. No, Jake whispered, stepping in front of her. You're not alone in this anymore. He didn't care who watched, didn't care what was said. In that moment, he took Solara's hand in his own. Gasps filled the hallway outside. The students had gathered, watching through the open door. Cameras flashed. Someone whispered, he's holding her hand in Thalquin tradition. That gesture meant more than kisses, more than words. It was a sign of full emotional connection, a public declaration of bonding. Jake didn't know the rules, but Solara's fingers gripped his back tightly, and she was smiling, tears glowing. At the edge of her alien eyes, the councilwoman looked stunned. This changes everything, she said slowly. The human administrator sighed, then spoke into his cum. We'll need a joint review panel. This is no longer just a scandal. It's a precedent. Jake led Solara back into the room and closed the door. Inside, he exhaled deeply. I didn't plan that, he said. I just couldn't let them erase you. Solara sat down, her body finally relaxing. You did more than save me, she whispered. You chose me, and in that small, glowing dorm room, full of quiet machines and alien plants, a scandal had bloomed into something far more powerful, a connection the stars themselves might never undo. The summons came at dawn. A thin strip of silver light slipped under their door. Carrying a glowing symbol, Jake picked it up. Heart pounding, the message was short, cold, and final. By Thalquin law and Human-Alien Accord 7.2, the bond must be tested through the trial of light. You will both appear before the circle within. One cycle, Jake turned to Solara, who was already awake, sitting cross-legged. Her hands glowing faintly, she did not look surprised. They want to see if our bond is real, she said quietly. Or just an emotional mistake. Jake rubbed his face. And if we fail? Solara's voice dropped. Then they'll erase all of its every memory, every feeling. Jake sat down beside her, the weight of that truth crashing down on his chest. One day they had just been awkward roommates. Now they were standing at the edge of something huge, something dangerous. Later that day, a small shuttle arrived to escort them. It took them deep into the central chamber of the Orbital Academy. The circle hall was unlike anything Jake had seen before. It had no walls, just curved beams of glowing light forming a dome above. Floating orbs spun in the air like tiny suns, each one representing a planet in the accord. Thalquin elders hovered above silver platforms, their robes flowing like liquid. On the opposite side stood a few human diplomats and observers. The trial would be public, watched by students and teachers, streamed across sectors. Jake felt like his chest was going to explode. Solara stood calmly beside him, her glow a bit brighter today, her eyes focused ahead. A voice echoed through the hall, soft but deep. Jake of Earth, Solara of Thalquin, it said. You have stepped outside of tradition. To test your bond, you must walk the trial of light. Jake took a deep breath. What does it involve? An orb floated down, landing in front of them, pulsing. The voice continued. You will enter the path of memory, face each other's truths, and feel each other's fears. If your bond holds, it shall be honored. Jake looked at Solara, who gave a soft nod. I'm ready, she said. He took her hand, and together they stepped into the orb. In a flash, the world vanished. Jake blinked, and suddenly he was standing in a place he hadn't seen in years, his childhood room back on Earth. Rain hit the window softly. A broken toy lay on the floor, and there, sitting on the bed, was a younger version of himself, crying quietly. Mom never came back, the child whispered. She left and never called. Jake's heart twisted. The memory hitting hard, he turned. Donzila was there, watching, feeling it too. He could see the emotion on her face, pain, sadness, understanding. Then the room melted into light, and the scene changed. Now, Jake stood in a cold silver chamber. One he didn't recognize. It was quiet, too quiet. A small alien girl stood alone in the middle, crying softly, her white hair covering her face. "I failed the bonding exam," she said. "They called me empty." Jake stepped closer, and his chest hurt just from hearing her words. Zilara, the adult Zilara, stood beside him again. "That was me," she said softly. "Before I ever came to Zenith 9, Jake reached out and touched her hand. "I would never call you empty," he whispered. Their surroundings lit up again. Shifting into stars, space, and soft energy, the voice returned, echoing in the vast dreamscape. "You have shared your pain," it said. "Now, you must share your fear." Suddenly, Jake was floating in a black void. Nothing around him, not even sound. Alone, then a distant voice as Alara's voice, calling out, fading. He tried to move, to find her. But he couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. A cold dread filled him, and just before panic swallowed him. A hand reached through the darkness, Zalara's hand, glowing bright, pulling him back into the light when they woke. They were still holding hands in the center of the circle hall. Their bodies were glowing. Not just hers, but his too. The Thalquin elders stared, stunned. The lead voice spoke once more. "The light has accepted your connection," it said. "The bond is real." Whispers filled the air. Some angry, some amazed, but Jake didn't care. He looked at Zalara, and she looked back at him, eyes full of calm fire. They had survived the trial of light. But it wasn't over yet, because outside this chamber, the universe was watching. And not all eyes were kind. Jake couldn't sleep that night, even after surviving the trial of light. Even after the elders accepted their bond, something didn't feel right. Zilara was silent too. She sat by the window. Her glowing hands pressed against the cold glass, staring into the stars beyond. The silence between them was not awkward this time, but heavy, like it was holding a secret neither one wanted to speak aloud. Jake finally broke it, his voice barely above a whisper. "Zilara, can I ask you something?" She didn't turn, but answered softly, "Yes. When you first came here, did you already know about me?" Zilara closed her eyes, her body glowing with slow, pulsing light. Then she turned around and nodded. "I did," she said, "because I was sent to you." Jake's heart sank. "Sent? By who?" "The Thalquin Research Division," she replied. "I was part of a program to study emotional imprinting with human subjects." Jake stood still, every part of him freezing inside. "You were spying on me?" he asked, voice tightening. "No," she said quickly, standing up. "It wasn't like that at first. I didn't even want to join the program," she added. "I was chosen because my emotional frequency was flat." Jake blinked, confused. "Flat." Zilara nodded. "Most Thalquin bond early in life, but I never did. I was considered emotionally numb. They thought pairing me with a human would have no effect. But the moment I saw you," she paused, her voice shaking, "something happened. Something no test ever predicted." Jake sat down on his bed, his hands shaking slightly. All this time, was any of it real? Lara walked slowly to him. Kneeling in front of him, her voice softer than ever, "I don't know when it changed." She whispered, "Maybe the night I brought you food and watched you laugh at your tablet. Or maybe when I heard your dream cry and held your hand in your sleep. I was supposed to observe you, nothing more," she continued. "But then I wanted to be near you, not for research, but for peace." Jake looked into her glowing eyes and saw something real, their regret, honesty, and fear. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. Because I was afraid, she said. Afraid you'd hate me. Afraid it would end before I knew what we were becoming, he sighed. Eyes heavy. I don't know what to think. Zalara? She stood slowly, looking away. The council knows too. She said they were going to use our bond to further the experiment. Until the trial proved it real, Jake stood too, shocked. So we're not just a scandal now, he said bitterly. We're data, Zalara nodded, unless we leave. Jake blinked. Leave? You mean? Run? She looked him in the eyes, calm but serious. If we stay, they'll study us, test us, control us, she said. But if we go, we choose who we become. Jake sat down again, overwhelmed. His whole life had been about plan school. Credits, graduation, maybe a job back on Earth. Now he was being asked to leave it all behind for her. He looked at Zalara again, her body still softly glowing. She wasn't just an alien anymore. She was the one who understood his fears, shared his memories, and faced the trial beside him. And now, she was asking him to trust her again. Despite everything, I need to think, he said, and she nodded silently. He left the dorm and walked into the quiet night halls of the station. Lights flickered above. The sound of air systems humming gently around him. Every hallway reminded him of a moment her laughter after hearing Earth music for the first time. Her careful touch when she fixed his broken tablet. Her soft breath when she slept near his bed. Everything had changed, and deep down, he knew the truth. He didn't want to be without her anymore. When he returned, she was still by the window. Staring into the stars, he walked over and stood beside her. If we go, he said, what happens to us? Zalara turned slowly. I don't know, she whispered, but it will be our choice. Jake smiled a little, tired but sure now. Then let's go, he said, before they decide for us again, outside. The stars seemed brighter that night, and somewhere beyond the black sky. Freedom was waiting. The ship was small, old, and barely spaceworthy. But to Jake and Zalara, it looked like freedom. They stood near docking bay 42, their backpacks light but hearts heavy. This was at the point of no return. Jake glanced at the security panel beside the door. Blinking red. Are you sure this code will work? He asked, voice low. Zalara nodded, her fingers already glowing as she touched the console. The override was hidden in the council records. She whispered, I copied it the day after the trial. With a soft click, the door slid open and warm yellow lights flickered inside. Jake stepped in first, breathing fast, his hands shaking just a little. Zalara followed, her body pulsing with nervous light. The ship smelled like dust and fuel. The seats worn, the control screen cracked, but it didn't matter. This wasn't about comfort, was about escape. Jake sat in the pilot's seat, checking controls like he'd practiced in the simulation labs. Zalara sat beside him, uploading the coordinates to a quiet sector beyond the Accord's borders. She looked at him, her voice gentle. If we do this, there is no going back. Jake smiled slightly. I don't want to go back. Suddenly, a loud voice rang through the bay speakers. Unauthorized launch detected, stand down immediately. Zalara's face turned pale blue. They've found us. Jake didn't wait. He pressed the ignition switch, and the ship roared to life. Metal groaned as it lifted from the floor, shaking as if waking from a long sleep. Come on, old girl. Jake muttered, don't fail us now. The door to the docking bay started to close. Red lights flashing. Zalara reached out with one glowing hand, and the bay doors froze, the systems glitching just long enough. The ship shot forward, passing through the narrowing gap. Outside, stars stretched in all directions, and the silence of space wrapped around them. Jake exhaled hard. We did it. But Zalara's eyes were locked on the radar. They've launched a patrol drone, Ski said, voice tight. We have 2 minutes. Jake leaned into the controls, pushing the ship faster. Behind them, a flash of light showed on the screen one of the station's security crafts had launched. Zlara activated a cloaking pulse, something hidden deep in the ship's old systems. It worked for a few seconds, the drone's signal wobbling, losing their trail. Jake grinned. Nice trick. Zlara smiled back. Thalquin tech may be old, but it's clever. Moments later, the ship crossed the outer security field. No more alarms, no more scanners, just black space and blinking stars. They were free. Jake leaned back, letting out the breath he'd held since the bay. Zlara turned toward him, her face soft, glowing with calm blue light. You could have stayed. She said gently, you had a life, a future on Earth. Jake chuckled. Yeah, maybe. But none of that meant anything after I met you. You didn't just walk into my room, Zlara, he continued. You walked into my life. She smiled, her eyes warm, and you into mine. They sat in silence, watching the stars pass by, far behind them. The station shrank into a distant light, somewhere deep inside. They both knew there would be challenges ahead. Food would run low, systems would break, and they had no allies out here. But they also knew something else, something more powerful than fear. They had each other. After a long while, Zlara stood and opened a small panel beside the cockpit. Inside was something glowing an orb, humming with soft energy. She held it out to Jake, her hands shaking slightly. This is my heartstone, she said. It carries my life's memory, my emotional core. Jake looked at her, confused but respectful. And you're giving it to me? In Thalquin tradition. It's only shared with a true partner, she whispered. If I give it, I cannot take it back. Jake gently took the orb, feeling its soft warmth pulse in his hands. He said nothing, only nodded. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a photo, old, creased, of his family on Earth. He handed it to her. I only kept one, he said. Now it's yours. Zlara held it close, and for the first time, tears fell from her eyes, real tears, glowing softly like stars. I never thought I could feel this much, she whispered. Jake took her hand, holding it firmly. You're not just data. He said, you're real, we're real. The ship's lights dimmed into sleep mode, the engines humming steadily beneath them. Outside the window, a new star system came into view. Unknown, unclaimed, untouched by rules or traditions. Zlara leaned against Jake's shoulder, her voice barely a breath. Where should we go first? Jake smiled. Anywhere, as long as it's not back. And with that, they disappeared into the stars. Two souls from different worlds, now bound by choice. Not fate, not law, but love.